Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. My name is Mitch. I go by the artist name Michacha. And today I'm trying something a little bit different with this video, doing an analysis of one of my songs and talking through some interesting things about it. So please let me know what you think of this type of video, if it's something you want me to do more, and if there are any particular songs you want me to do this for, and otherwise just any questions you have about any specific songs that you'd want me to answer. And also, if you don't like this type of video, let me know. That's useful feedback too. So the song I'll be looking at today is The Downfall from my new album, Conversations with My Insecurities.
I wanted you, but you saw me as a friend and I couldn't see the downfall. Things aren't quite what
And if you haven't heard the song, you should check it out. There's a link up here somewhere and in the description. And maybe you should listen to the whole album after you watch this video. And the reason I chose this song is because in a lot of ways it's a fairly standard pop rock song, but it's also a very interesting song in a few ways because I did a few things that are a bit unusual, but not super out there. So that's why I gave this video the title that I did, even though it's a little clickbaity. But yeah, let's just begin the video right now. And just a warning, this video is going to be a bit music nerdy.
the downfall. Things aren't quite what I thought they'd be, and I stumbled. I dreamed a dream but couldn't see.
Okay, so let's start off with the guitar part. The first thing you'll probably notice is that I've got two capos on my guitar here, which is not a normal thing to do. So this capo here is covering all 6 frets all 6 strings on the first fret. And then the second capo is covering all the strings except the lower E string on the 3rd fret. And so what this does is gives basically that tuning of F, C, F, B flat, D, G. And what this does is it means I can play an F chord in this D shape with this low F. Because if I just had the capo on 3, I couldn't do that. I'd have to mute that, and the chord would sound very, very light and not have that nice low end. But then it also means that I can still play other chord shapes like this G using this low string, because it's not actually detuned, it's just using this fret back here. And so it's quite a useful thing for the chords that I'm playing in this song. And so the second thing about all these chords that I'm playing is I'm using what I like to call the D sus2 trick. And basically what it is a lot of the chords are pedaling these 3 notes, or even this D below as well. And by pedaling I mean those notes just stay in the chords as the other notes move around. And so what this means is, I guess the first chord, the F is an exception, but then from here I've got this D sus2 shape, and I can move this middle finger, to a bunch of different positions. I guess I had to change my fingers there, but it's still these same strings. And I've got a bunch of different chords there that are quite unique and have some interesting extensions. So the chord progression for this song is this F, going to this B flat 6 sus2, to this D minor 11, then to this C sus4, and to a C, and back to this F. And I think it's a fairly standard progression in the sense that all the root notes of these chords are quite normal, but then they've got interesting extensions, which makes it just a little bit unique, which I think is just a cool way to make the song stand out, but not feel too alien, or sound too alien. I also use this technique, this D sus2 technique, in my song Puzzles, in the verse guitar part. So then these chords stay the same until the bridge of the song, where I start on this D minor 11 chord, go to this E flat add 9 chord, which is the flat 7 in the key. So if you don't know much about music theory, that means that it's a chord borrowed from the minor key, the relative minor. So from F minor, you'd get that E flat chord. And it's just an interesting way to add a little bit of spice to your chords, but not be super out there. And it's just a bit more interesting. And I think it works well in that bridge because it's a bit more of an intense section. And some other elements add to that as well, as I'll get to later. Then the final interesting thing to talk about on this part is the last chord, which is this. And I like to think of this chord as 2 chords stacked on top of each other. Basically this B flat major 7, I should say, on top of this F power chord, or F5. So altogether, it's an interesting feeling, because the B flat chord is a bit of a step away from home, but then that F chord, being low down, sounds very resolved. So having them both at once, it's like you've come home, but something's just not quite right. And I think that kind of feeling that the chord gives works very well for this song. It's a bit of a bittersweet ending, and it's a bit unsure.
It was no one's fault but my own. As I stumbled down that road, I saw the clues for what would be, but those rose glasses blinded.
Okay, now onto the electric guitar part. So, this part is on my Strat style guitar, the 4th pickup, going through an orange style amp in Logic. If you're curious, it's the Stadium stack. The first thing you'll probably notice is that I've only got 1 capo on here. And so, the electric and the acoustic parts, even though in the choruses they're both strumming, they're playing slightly different parts. And I did this because when you have 2 guitar parts playing similar chords but in some different voicings, it just makes them sound a bit more interesting rather than just playing the same thing. So for this one, we've got this F chord here, moving up to this B flat add 9 chord with these 2 strings open, up to this D minor 7, keeping those 2 strings open, and to this C add 4, or add 11. And having the 2 different voicings of chords at once, just makes them a bit more dense, a bit more interesting. Then in the verses, to distinguish the verses from the choruses, I put on a delay pedal, which I'll do again now. And doing this just adds a bit more ambience, and I played some arpeggio type parts. Just to really distinguish the verses from the choruses and add a bit of ambience. This style of playing, I was inspired by The Edge from U2. I'm definitely nowhere near as good of a guitarist, but that's kind of what I was going for. And then in the bridge of the song, put on some heavier distortion and played some power chords. That just seemed to go well with the bit heavier, bit denser style of that section in the song. And the reason I'm not playing full bar chords is because with that level of gain, they just get a little bit muddy because all of the harmonics of the notes rub against each other. Is that too nerdy? Am I going too far into that? I don't know. I'll decide in editing whether I want to keep it in. And one other thing to note about the electric guitars in this song is that there's actually 2 parts. They're quite similar, and a lot of the time they're just doubling each other left and right. But there are parts when one of them drops out just for the other one to do its thing, or when the song needs a bit more space. And that'll do it for the electric guitar part. So now, onto the bass.
Down.
So the bass part in this song, for the most part, is nothing to write home about. It's fairly standard. But there is a bass solo. So when I was structuring this song, after the bridge, I didn't want the song to go right back into a big chorus, because that's a bit of a predictable build. I wanted to have something in there where it drops back down in energy before it builds back up. And so I originally just had this kind of instrumental funky little section, not super funky, but like strumming chopped a bit on the acoustic and a funky-ish drum beat. But then I thought I could add a bass solo to this. And the reason I thought bass solo rather than any other instrument is, well, first of all, I like to mix up my solos a bit and not always have it be a guitar solo, because as cool as guitar solos are, they're kind of overused. I like to give different instruments the spotlight. And also, just because the nature of it being a lower energy thing, bass is good for that, because guitar solos can be really high energy, but bass solos are generally a bit more chill, and I thought that fit this well. Then throughout this bass solo that's fairly simple, mostly pentatonic stuff, it then gradually builds up as it goes up in pitch, and then comes back down at the end to hit us back into the chorus for a big finish.
Missteps, yeah.
So I also decided that I needed something between the chorus and the verses, because that area of the song was quite bare, so I thought I'd add a little melody in between, and I started off with that on the electric piano. But then I thought, that's a little dull. It's alright as it is, but I thought it would be a lot more fun if I added a Glockenspiel. So I did. You get the idea. And then for the second time around, when we got to that section of the song, I thought I'd change it up a little bit, because I don't like having sections be exactly the same multiple times throughout the song. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I just find it more interesting if they have at least a little bit different between them. So what I did was I harmonized the keyboard part and slightly changed the ending. I also added some electric piano to the bridge and the last chorus, just because I had the instrument in there and I thought it fit well.
Yeah, I've never felt this way. I put myself out on the line.
I also wanted to talk about the drums in the song. I decided to use rods when recording it rather than normal drumsticks, because I was inspired by the song Wonderwall by Oasis, because I know the drums in that song, I think played by Alan White, or played with rods, and the song had a bit of a similar vibe with the acoustic guitar and things, so I thought I'd do that, and it seemed to work quite well. Most of the song has a similar drum beat, but then I mixed it up in the bridge, as I seem to do with most things in this song, and played an interesting beat where there's an interesting offbeat focus. I'll put a little notation of it on screen and play a clip. I think I accidentally stole this drum beat from the song Allies by Mute Math, which is a great song, by the way. But anyway, I just think this off-kilter, offbeat feel works really well for this contrasting section of the song. And then after that, in the bass solo, I played another interesting beat, accenting just the offbeats of the hi-hats. And that's basically the main interesting parts in the drums.
And I don't blame you for anything, all the problems that came from me.
Okay, now onto the vocals. So I don't want to talk about the lyrics too much in this song, because they're quite personal, and I've said everything in the lyrics that I want to say. Interestingly though, it was one of the fastest songs for me to write. It only took me about an hour to write all the lyrics and the chords, which usually takes me a lot longer, and I have to do it in multiple sittings. But I think just being such a personal thing that was on my mind, it was faster to write. And that about does it for the analysis of the song. Some final things before I finish the video. I've been thinking about selling some CDs for this album, so if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know, because I'd love to just gauge some interest before I do anything like that, to see if it's worthwhile. Again, just let me know what your thoughts are on this type of video, that's useful to know. And also there's a link to the album and the song in the description. It would mean a lot to me if you checked it out, but obviously you don't have to. And also subscribe with notifications on if you like what I do and want to know when I upload more. Then just a final thing you can do to support me if you want to do more, you can share this video with a friend or one of my other videos, or even my whole album. That would mean so much and be so helpful. But no pressure to do that if you don't want to. And other than that, just have a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye!